Hi, I'm Karen Varga with CEAg Greenhouse Produce, an innovative brand that engages with the rapidly expanding global greenhouse produce industry through a variety of media and platforms. Our mission is to educate and connect greenhouse produce growers and allies to help better understand and sustainably advance the global food industry. So, on this episode of CEAg Talks, I'll be speaking with Henry Gordon Smith. Henry is the founder and CEO of Agritecture, an advisory services and technology firm focused on climate smart agriculture, particularly urban and controlled environment agriculture. Looking forward, how are all of these things going to play a role in the future of greenhouse produce?
Yeah, I think looking forward, greenhouses sort of under that lens of what's happened with vertical farming, I think greenhouses are really about to enter a new Renaissance era. I think that, again, we've sort of talked about they're considered less sexy, which isn't true. There's so much innovation that you can still do in a greenhouse. And I think you sort of need to see the current ways of doing greenhouses, like the foundation for the business model and the technology stack and the operations plan, and then build your specific innovations around that based on what you think the market needs. That's always the most important. So I think we're going to see a lot more automation in the greenhouses for sure, because labor costs are going up and it's very difficult to get the talent. So the justification of that upfront capex that has been a major question for growers to develop automation becomes less of a question as the risk of acquiring labor is more challenging. And also as we see more automation, that cost goes down. So I think that's inevitable. Obviously, a foundation around that is the continued growth of something we haven't talked too much about, which is data. We're seeing more and more farms either retrofit their facilities to include more data capture strategies or build new facilities with data. I mean, we can see greenhouses. I've seen greenhouses now that have drones that go around doing imaging and machine vision, which is one of the most sort of advanced and robust forms of AI, where you can take pictures of the plants and capture all of that and identify issues before they happen. So I think that foundation lends itself to automation, right? Because as we get more data from the farms themselves, we know what kind of interventions to do, how to improve, et cetera. So I think we're going to see a lot more of the expansion of, I don't know if it's all AI yet, but like I would say big data empowered interventions in greenhouses. Some other cool things I've seen as well is like going back to low tech, right? So we need to keep in mind that there's like a range of technologies of greenhouse. You can have a high tech, fully automated greenhouse. You can have a medium tech greenhouse that's, might be glass, might be plastic, but it's, mostly run by labor. And then you can have really low tech greenhouses that actually don't produce year round, but do protect and sort of extend the season. So just sort of simple framework for our audience. On the low tech side, again, I get really excited about these small tech interventions. I mentioned Red Sea and Iris. But there's also another group, their name is falling from me right now, but they basically provide CO2 to different businesses that need them. And obviously greenhouses can benefit from CO2 to increase plant production. But on the low tech side, what they've been doing is they've been adding basically CO2 misters that go into low tech shade structures, essentially shade tunnels, and distribute CO2 within those. And I think that's also really interesting. Like, how can we not go fully controlled, but bring in some of the technology that you see in high-tech greenhouses and bring some of them into low-tech greenhouses? So I think we're going to see more of that. Why? Because some of these interventions are not that expensive, and they have much wider applications than just for high-tech greenhouses. Right. So if I talk about drones and AI, there's a pretty limited set of greenhouses that can afford and benefit and utilize that now. If we think about most of the farmers undercover, another term for CEA and sort of protected growing, a lot of them can't afford that technology. They're not even that connected to the internet, but they could do a system of tubing and increase CO2 to increase yield. Right. So these interventions are also very, very, very interesting to me in the future. Going back to vertical farming, we are seeing some synergies between vertical farming and greenhouses start to rise a lot more. We're seeing greenhouses that are building vertical farms for their nurseries to grow healthy young plants. And I love to see that, because I think the sort of debate between the two technologies is just like, it's important to know the differences, but it's not really like they're not against each other. they have similar objectives, and they can actually work synergistically. Even with outdoor agriculture, we're seeing vertical farms growing trees for forests now, right? So that spillover between the technology, in particular greenhouses and vertical farms in this context of this discussion, is really interesting to me as land prices go up, as farmers are really thinking about how do they maximize their space and how do they reduce, how do they basically get high quality seedlings, right? Instead of buying them, maybe they can grow some of their own. Maybe they can have a nursery where they sell some of those seedlings for additional revenue. I think that's also very, very interesting. And then I think another piece, one I want to mention is a lot more specialty crops. So we're seeing, obviously, most greenhouses are growing basically commodities, and so they're sort of subject to the prices. But we are seeing more and more greenhouses and growers, especially I would say those. I guess I've seen a mix of new growers and existing growers, but I think a lot of them are new growers. We're like, okay, I want to grow something, novel like vanilla or whatever. But I saw, dragon fruit is getting very popular in certain markets. And I don't really like the taste of it, but it's quite a good priced product, and it looks interesting and it's very marketable. But one of Agritecture's greenhouse supplier partners, New Growing Systems, NGS in Spain, I got to visit one of their customers and see what they're doing with dragon fruit. And this was fascinating to me because this is like a pretty large, maybe medium-sized olive grower in Spain near the Costa Brava, like a little bit inland. And he's been growing olives for years and years and years, and he's subject to whatever prices there are in the market. And he sort of heard about dragon fruit in the market, that people wanted it, and he decided to build 8,000 square meters of greenhouse. And the greenhouse itself looks like a typical greenhouse, but the structures, the way the dragon fruit is supported, the way the automation systems are developed, are all customized around this specialty product. So I think we're going to see more typologies of greenhouses designed around the technology and operation stack needed for specialty crops to allow both existing and new growers to grow special products that they can get great margins on. I mean, this grower says that basically he doesn't have to touch it. He just at a harvest period needs to take care of it. Basically, they all grow, all the sensors manage the climate and everything. He calculates that he'll get ROI on his greenhouse by year 3. And certainly the dragon fruit itself is producing a much higher yield indoors than outdoors, which is one of the main benefits of greenhouses. So those are some thoughts on the future, what's coming. I guess one more layer is I think policy is going to really start to push this more. I would say policy and architecture even. The reason I say policy is because it takes time, but policymakers are becoming more aware, I would say at a municipal and regional level, of the benefits of having greenhouses near their cities. So Agritecture has worked with the city of Dallas on a comprehensive plan for urban agriculture. We've worked with the government of Qatar, and greenhouses come up consistently as a meaningful way to create jobs, produce local and lower carbon footprint resilient agriculture. And vertical farming can't really do that. It can only grow a set of crops. So greenhouses are going to continue to benefit from these policies as policymakers get smarter and more aware of it. And then I added the architecture lens because, at Agritecture, we work on a lot, especially recently, a lot of master planning of new cities. And again, because the data presents itself this way, we recommend a lot of greenhouses in these master plans. And so I think as these cities get built, as these are basically new cities or new neighborhoods, and they think about the food system and they hire Agritecture to design the sort of food system for them. So we're working on 4 of them right now in different parts of the world. And these have huge opportunities to integrate greenhouses. And so I think as those actually develop and become real, we're going to actually see a lot of requests for operators. There's going to be demand for farmers to move in to newer communities where there is a set of residents demanding food, fresh food, and it's part of the sort of thematic focus of the neighborhood or the city to have more local food, and greenhouses stand to benefit the most from that. So that's just some things I'm looking forward to in the future here with greenhouses.